Hello, Arianna. It is Thursday, January the 9th, 2020, and I'm actually 2 days late in terms of doing this yearly review. Um, I don't actually know if I'll ever see you again, if you'll want to see me again, if I'll be alive when I'm in a position to see you again. But the idea is if I'm not around, then I'm hoping that my friend Ben will pass my yearly reviews on to you so you can actually see that I cared. Um, anyway, I'll just get straight into it. Unfortunately, um, I've written all this on paper. It's about 9 pages long. It'll probably be incredibly boring, and I'm not very good at reading over a long period of time, whether to myself or out loud, because I don't know. I just drop off, as indeed will you when you've listened to this. Anyway, yearly review of 2019 to Arianna. On New Year's Eve of 2018, I spent the day in bed after suffering with kidney stones. I went to St Mary's Hospital a couple of days later for a blood test, followed by an ultrasound 2 weeks later, which showed no blockages. When I got round to seeing my doctor for the results, there didn't seem to be much wrong with me. Despite all the worst case scenarios I was presented with, I was okay. I eventually managed a day out with Simon, Caroline, Diana and Ben, which was delayed from New Year's Eve. We went to a lovely pub called the Wine Vaults before moving on to a boarded card gaming place called Dice in Albert Road. Afterwards we went to a Thai restaurant before going home. Now the Carer Centre announced they were to close their weekly cafe, which had previously been a godsend to me. It then became a monthly event before disappearing altogether. I still continued with the cookery sessions though. Now, we had some problems with some boys in the shop. This dragged on for months, where I had even been spat at twice by a 14-year-old ringleader called Harley. Things had got worse when Harley's friend Alfie came into the shop with his mum and I asked him to leave. Things quickly got out of hand when they both became aggressive and the boy pulled some coffee off a shelf and damaged stock. I had thought that this was at an end at 9 p.m. when it happened, but I was followed home by the boy's stepfather and I didn't get home until 11:15 p.m. I was fortunate that a woman recognised me from the shop and recorded the footage. Despite it being in darkness, the audio was very good. However, the police weren't even interested in seeing the footage and opted to do nothing. Instead, I would have regular phone conversations with victim support and be armed with a panic alarm. I transferred to the Southampton branch for a brief period, but I found it too boring and expensive. At the time, it was costing me about £12 to get there per day, and that was equivalent to an hour and a half of my wage. So I couldn't keep doing that. In February, I took Mum shopping to Salisbury for the last time and also to Reading. The former was a very nice town and a good market, but we didn't buy much. What was somewhat irritating was many of the eateries were packed inside or had outside or upstairs seating, which in February wasn't ideal for Mum. At the beginning of March, I took Mum to Bournemouth, a place I hadn't been to for 7 years. I had no idea the place was built on so many hills because pushing Mum around in a wheelchair was very tiring. We did some shopping and went for a coffee and then later to a Polish restaurant. Mum really enjoyed herself. So I'm going to see if I can get a bit more comfortable. Ben and I travelled to Southampton to see Diana, whom we hadn't seen for a while due to a Middle Eastern cruise, which we wanted to talk about as it was of interest to us. Unfortunately, the day was soured when she thought I was accusing her of being fat, which wasn't true. For a variety of reasons, we didn't see her again until May, which allowed the dust to settle. Something that spooked me was the memories on Facebook. Your mum had commented on an earlier post, but the name had changed from Foley to Harney. I have no idea what this relates to, whether she has remarried or whatever. My main concern is that another man could now be your new daddy, and that is something I would rather not know. It's not that I don't care, Arianna. I do. I just feel that the more I find out, the more I'll get upset. In March, my friend Rachel and I went to Christchurch for the first time. Towards the end of the month, Ben and I went to Caen in France. It was nothing more than a shopping trip, and surprisingly, Ben got more out of it than me. Ben and I enjoyed a lovely day out in Brighton towards the end of April. We went to a video gaming cafe called Loading. Afterwards, we went to a lovely pub, followed by a meal in a Turkish restaurant. We had this salty yogurt drink called Arianne, which neither of us liked. When you are eating olives to take the taste away, you know you've got problems. Afterwards, Ben and I had mixed fortunes in a casino where he won £20 and I lost about the same amount of money, which is what usually happens when I go out with Ben. Anyway, Ben and I went back to Southampton later that week to attend a Human League tribute act. We had a very good night meeting others we knew. I even got up and danced. I think your mum would have been shocked, and I think I sent my arthritic body into shock too, as it was lifeless the following day. On May the 7th, I took Mum to Eastbourne, a place neither of us had been to before. The city centre was close to the railway station, so we were able to do our shopping very quickly. We both liked the place, but I think I would have preferred a longer walk from the station. We both found a Mexican stroke Moroccan stroke Spanish fusion restaurant I rather liked, although Mum played safe with some kiddies chicken nuggets and a chips option. I had something called a chimichanga, which I really loved. I travelled to Krakow in Poland with Ben on May the 12th. The weather was overcast or raining throughout the holiday, but started well when we had evening dinner at a family's house, where one Chinese guy and a Danish woman and her son also attended. I was entranced by the Polish couple who cooked for us. For me, it was the best thing we did while we were out there. Page 3. The following morning, Ben and I went on tour to a salt mine. I think it's called a Wilichka salt mine. Anyway, it wasn't bad, but not really our thing. In the evening, Ben and I went on a food tour. This involved walking to a number of restaurants, eating a lot of food. The quality of food was very good, but there wasn't much interactive. Spelled that wrong. There wasn't much interaction between the tour guide and the two other guests due to endlessly talking and not allowing anyone to get a word in. I hate fish, but brave some herring. It was horrific. The following day was a mixed bag. We went to a place that was where they made their own, like, seaside rock. We then went to something called the Rheineck Underground Museum. Both were very underwhelming and left us at a loose end for several hours. In the evening, while waiting for a bus to take us to a Polish folk show, we were harassed by a woman in a public toilet who was angry we hadn't given her any entry money. She may also be very angry that we wandered into the ladies' toilet by mistake. After paying her, we ran away in hysterics. The folk show was a very good laugh, and I really wish there was more people to have shared it with us, because only two of us went on holiday that time. One of the Polish dancers had beckoned Ben to dance with her, and I pushed him out of his chair. I couldn't stop laughing as I watched his static and terrible dancing. The food and drink was good too. The following day was very good, where we went to something called Mirror Labyrinth, which was some LED lighted mirror maze. For a brief period of time, it was quite entertaining. We then went to an escape game called Lost Souls Alley. This involved having to find keys to escape rooms. This involved finding keys to escape rooms while roaming around in the dark, being attacked by zombies. Ben rather liked it, although it wasn't really my thing. The rest of the afternoon was spent on a tour to Oskar Schindler's factory. In the evening, we were at loose end. All the tours were booked up, and it was cold and raining. In the main square, we were accosted by a woman who wanted to know if we wanted to watch a burlesque show. Neither of us were really keen, but we had nothing better to do. Unfortunately, we were conned. It was a lap dancing bar, and we were too polite and scared to leave. We were plied with a lot of vodka and collectively parted with £140. I won't go into further details. On the last day of our holiday, we went to Zakopan in the Tatra Mountains. As beautiful as this place was, the amount of vodka consumed the previous evening upset our stomachs, where we were making irregular trips to the public toilets. We must have spent as much paying to use their toilets as we did anything else, and we felt we should have been issued loyalty cards. The following day, we came home. On Saturday, 8th of June, Ben and I went to Southampton to meet Diana and Caroline to watch a film called Rocket Man, a musical about the life of Elton John. I've never been a big fan of musicals, but it was a very good film. We then went for a meal in a Brazilian restaurant afterwards. On Monday, the 10th of June, I attended my recently formed Shy meetup group at the Bridge Cafe in Fratton, where 3 of us attended. I was surprisingly chilled out compared to when I previously hosted events. I took Mum to Bognor Regis at the end of the week, and we really liked the place. Mum bought a nice plant while she was there, and sadly fell over at home trying to plant it. It wasn't until we had an ambulance round the next evening did we learn she'd broken her wrist. During the week, Mum's temporary plaster cast came off. Mum also phoned me just after 6 a.m. while I was at work to moan about the kitchen drawer that had broken, and she was moaning that she could fall on the drawer I left by the back door out of the way. She even told me not to bother coming home in the evening, something she claimed she had no recollection of saying. During the next week, Mum was being horrible to me and Audrey. Audrey decided to go home after apparently being told to fuck off, something she didn't remember saying. On one day, I spent the whole morning keeping away from the house, where I had breakfast in a Costa Coffee in Palmerston Road before going to the carer centre to have a chat about Mum. On Thursday, the 27th of June, I took Mum to the hospital to have a new plaster cast. She didn't want to wear it, complaining it was hurting her and wanting to remain in hospital because no one could look after her. Sadly, all the doctors and nurses were finishing their shifts, and Mum was told she'd be waiting hours for a bed and would still have to wear a cast for 4 weeks, and they would have kept her in anyway. She came home in a positive mood, or so I thought. Sadly, I went into her bedroom the following morning to see her cast had been pulled off. I put it back on, but when I arrived home, it was off again. I was losing my patience with her, and the atmosphere was so bad that over the next few days I spent very little time at home, and on Sunday evening I stayed in a Travelodge hotel. The following day, she was phoning me and an ambulance, giving us all conflicting information. I had a phone call saying Mum had been unable to leave her bedroom, to which I replied, if that was correct, how did she contact them if the phone was downstairs? In the end, I came home, and Mum did eventually walk downstairs on her own. Saturday, 13th of July, was signalled as the end of another friendship. I hosted a meet-up event in Dice where 5 of us attended and went rather well. However, things turned sour when Diana, Ben and I went to a Korean restaurant across the road. Diana can be quite political, whereas I'm not. She upset me when she said the Tories were to blame for my counselling course in 2016, when I was struggling with loss of you and my mum's recent ill health. As it was a very stressful time for me, I did tell her I felt it was very poor what she was saying, which she disagreed with. Ben was later talking about the time he refused to remove a rough sleeper's stuff on his workaround. I told Diana I wouldn't have done either, and in a very disbelieving tone, she said, "Would you?" I was becoming tired of her attitude and asked her if she wanted me to leave, and she stared at me and said nothing. When I asked her again, she unconvincingly said it was a joke. She then continued to talk to Ben for over 10 minutes as if I wasn't there, and I just got up quietly, gave them £20 for the meal, and left. Diana and I have not been friends since, and I've since left her meetup group and was quite depressed for weeks. Now, Mum's hearing started to deteriorate, and this was causing an atmosphere in the house. Although thankfully she did request getting her hearing tested, she was to be issued with hearing aids for both their ears in the new year. In fact, in about a few days' time. Towards the end of July, I visited Ben and his mother and Nan for 2 days on the Isle of Wight. It was nice to get away, just a bit of shopping, walking and dwelling in pubs. We went to Sandown, Shanklin, Ventnor and Newport. Unfortunately, on the way home I had an argument with a train guard where the doors wouldn't open and I was stuck on a train where I couldn't get off until Havant. In August, I hosted a meet-up event in the Wine Vaults, which made me nervous without Ben there. 5 of us were there, but 3 women only seemed interested in finding out what my group does. which is a bit weird because they'd only just started it. Three of them didn't believe I was shy or had social anxiety disorder and then left to attend someone else's meetup event. Charming. Later the same month, I went to Bournemouth with Rachel. We didn't do much other than hang around the seaside and look around the shops before going to a cafe for a cake and a coffee. While we were chatting on the beach, I became emotional when recalling the incident where I saw you at ballet and you ran towards me for a hug. I also made a new friend called Naomi, who I met through my meetup group. She became a moderator of my Facebook group, but she was able to get, where she was able to increase the membership. We did meet a few times, but she never attended any of my meetup events. But we did plan similar things through the Facebook group. Unfortunately, I found her a bit too controlling and we ended up going our separate ways, much to my relief. In September, Ben and I went to Istanbul. We absolutely loved the place. It was very vibrant with quirky shops that always seemed to be open in the area where our hotel was. They sold all kinds of weird things and you would frequently find restaurant seating on the road as the cars passed you. On the first night we arrived, I tried to buy a SIM card for my phone, but when it didn't work, I was still expected to pay for it because my phone was locked to a certain network. When I refused, Ben and I were ordered out of the shop. Ben said they were following us and we ran away. The following day we walked around Sultan Ahmet, where we checked out the Basilica Sistine, Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque. We were somewhat bored with these, so we had lunch in a restaurant where we were approached by someone who worked there. He was over friendly and I smelt a rat when he asked us to join him for an apple tea. When we followed him, we saw loads of carpets and having previously did some research, I worked out he was trying to sell us one. We quickly left. While we were in Istanbul, we did a couple of football stadium tours. Galatasaray was fine, but Besiktas was a waste of time because the whole tour was in Turkish. We also went to the Grand Bazaar, which was lovely with all its shops, but selling far more expensive stuff you could buy anywhere else in Istanbul. We also went on a riverboat dinner cruise we hated. The food took forever to arrive and was burnt. The entertainment was late and underwhelming. We also had a walking coffee tour planned, which neither happened because I was never sent details of where to find them. We spent ages looking for them and gave up, wasting a whole day. We did get our money back though. We went on a day trip to the Prince's Islands where we had a horse and cart ride, which was good fun, but after buying some souvenirs and having dinner, we had nothing else to do until we waited for our ferry to take us back. The following day was better. We went to the Asian side of Turkey, to Bursa. It was a very long tour. We went to a huge shop that made their own Turkish delight, which was wonderful. We also went to an antique silk market and an underwhelming honey shop before relaxing in a restaurant to have the worst meal we had during our holiday. In the afternoon, we went on a ski lift, which we really loved and would have liked to have spent more time in the area, as it seemed a lovely place to explore. We then went on 2 cable cars before coming back to the hotel by coach and ferry. Prior to coming home, I noticed I had piles. Whether that was due to me taking codeine painkillers or squatting over a hole in the ground to have a poo in Turkey is unclear, but some medication soon got rid of it. After my friendship ended with Diana, I lost a lot of enthusiasm for my meetup group, which I eventually closed towards the end of the year. I did join someone else's group where I attended 4 pub quizzes in 2 venues. On a couple of occasions I had a pretty good laugh, and on one occasion our team won. On November the 12th, Ben and I went to a 1980s music gig to see a band called OMD at Portsmouth Guildhall. This is one of the best gigs we have ever been to. On the 27th of November, Ben and I travelled to Coventry to see our friend Rachel for a couple of days. While we were there, we went to look around Birmingham and spend a few hours at the Good Food Show. We also spent a couple of hours at Cadbury World in Bourneville. Rachel also took us to a lovely Victorian Christmas market in Worcester. In December, I visited this woman called Stevie who belonged to my Facebook group. It was something of a disaster as I was supposed to see her some weeks earlier and it didn't happen due to her attack of nerves. I went to her place at 7 p.m. for dinner. but when I arrived, it still hadn't been cooked or even started. At one point, I was chopping garlic in a living room for the starter. However, by 1 p.m., we still hadn't eaten dinner, and I decided, sorry, did I say 1 p.m.? I'll change that. However, by 1 a.m., we still hadn't eaten dinner, and I decided to go home as I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'll never know if our lasagna was any good, other than it set off the smoke alarm. The following evening, I went for Christmas drinks with my colleagues from work. Rather disappointingly, was that my boss, who organised it, didn't show. But it was quite nice meeting all my work colleagues anyway. Christmas Day was okay, with just me and Mum. We took turns in opening presents just to pad out the morning. I cooked the ribber beef, but not very well it seemed. It was massively undercooked and ended up chopped up in the slow cooker for Boxing Day. New Year's Eve was possibly my favourite day. After taking Mum shopping, our taxi took a detour to my colleague Alicia's house. She wasn't in, but I briefly spoke to her mum. Alicia had an appalling Christmas where she split up with her boyfriend, who damaged the beds and argued with her first child, and then moved back in with her mother. I left her mum some presents and some money, which had Alicia in tears when she came home. I also had a surprise for my best friend Ben. I bought him a laptop as a belated birthday present. Afterwards, we went out for a meal with our friends Simon, Andy, Rachel and Caroline. We spent the rest of the evening in dice, playing card and ball games. The smoke alarm going off multiple times brought amusement, unlike the letdown of the countdown to the new year no one seemed prepared for. Now, that is the end of my yearly review in 2019. You may ask why I bore you to death with this. The truth is that since being separated from you, my well-being has deteriorated and I don't feel I'm the same person you knew and loved. Should I be reunited with you, I want you to be proud of me. I don't want your pity. Since 2014, I've lost you, lost other friends, and suffered with a complete lack of self-confidence. With Mum's health issues holding me back, I thought you might have more respect for me if I kept busy and tried to get on with my life rather than sink into depression and stay there. Anyone can pay maintenance and put money aside for the kids, but I'm hoping by continually keeping a diary of what I've been doing, this will make you realise how important you still are to me. By talking to you through these yearly diaries and YouTube, I want to honour your memory and seek your approval. Take care, love, Dad. Right, that's everything. I'm sorry if this seems like I'm what's the word I'm looking for? Mumbling or whatever, but I really don't enjoy reading several pages worth of text. I never liked it at school, and I've never adapted to it. I can't think of a way of honouring your memory. Over the last few years, you notice I'm not actually reading anything now. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of changes with me mentally. First, I became incredibly confused when I was separated from you, and I had hoped that your mum would come to her senses and let me see you, and she wouldn't. And then I had to deal with my mum's health issues, and I should have been looking after myself, and I wasn't. And I never have looked after myself really, so I've basically put my health issues aside, and I wouldn't say that it's taken me 5 years to overcome the loss of you, because I don't think I'll ever overcome that, but it has taken me 5 years to get to where I am. I don't cry as much, I don't get upset as much, but it does come out occasionally, and I want you to know that. There have been sort of times early on where I'd like you to have come through the door where I work, and I'd greet you with hugs, but then over time there's no way that I can have any contact with your mother, because I just feel so upset, angry and really let down, and I feel that the only way I can have any interaction with you is if you're on your own. You may choose not to want to have anything to do with me, and I can't do anything about that. That's your right after all. But I don't want anyone thinking that I abandoned you. People who know me know the truth, and your mum only knows what she tells them. Anyway, take care, and hope to see you in the future.